welcome to the first episode of This, That, and Another, PPL's official podcast about the library and the communities we serve. My name is Jay.
And my name's Sophia.
It's good to be doing this. I feel like we've been talking about doing the official PPL podcast for quite a bit, so I'm very excited to be doing this with you right now.
Absolutely, Jay. And anytime we get the opportunity to hype up libraries and library workers, I am here for that.
And what is this library podcast about? Well, it's kind of in the title. It's about this, that, and another. There's so much that happens here at PPL. I remember walking behind somebody in the library a couple of years ago, and they were saying PPL is so much more than just books. It's a classroom. It's a theater. It's an art gallery. That's true. There's a lot that happens here. There's a lot to talk about. Even as we record this right now, there's so much happening here at PPL.
Yes, there's so much happening here at the library. And I think another thing that I want to acknowledge is that libraries are one of the last third spaces here, not only in Providence, but in all cities where you go and everything that you do here is for free.
I'll take free any day.
Absolutely. But you're right. There is a lot happening right now. We currently have 5 exhibitions that are in the process of being installed already. And in this episode, we'll be focusing on all things print. 2 of the artists that we have up right now are printmakers. They use offset and letterpress techniques, and they celebrate the beauty, the joy, and the magic that comes with printing. I'm talking about Amos Paul Kennedy Jr. and Jacques Bidon. Bidon's exhibition is on view in the Marble Staircase Community Gallery on the 3rd floor. The name of it is Rhode Island Creatives. His prints celebrate Black artists in Providence and their continuing legacies. He features 19th century prominent artists such as Sister Etta Jones, Nancy Prophet, Christina Bannister, Cheryl Miller, who all led the way in Black art and design. We also have on view prints by Amos Paul Kennedy Jr. He's a letterpress printer based in Detroit, Michigan, and he just received the Southern Graphics International Lifetime Achievement Award, which the conference was here in Providence last weekend. He's known for political prints, Words of Liberation, and Direct Rebellion, Black Joy, The Day-to-Day, and he creates a shimmering composition of words, forms, and ideas. These prints can be seen on the ground floor, 1st floor, and 3rd floor of the library currently. These prints are beautifully infectious. They celebrate libraries, and they hone in on Kennedy's personal stake in library success.
We're actually going to be talking to Amos later on in the podcast as well.
In conversation with All Things Print, the library cares for 7,500 different types of printed ephemera, mostly portraits, printers, typefounders, booksellers, and publishers, and this is all housed in the Updike Collection in Special Collections.
We actually had a chance to talk to the director of Special Collections, Jordan Goffin, all about it, and it went a little bit something like this. Jordan, what can you tell us about Special Collections?
We try to bring in and preserve and ideally make as accessible as possible artifacts that just basically can't go out the door like normal books. And I think what makes us kind of particular is that we're really focused first on access. We want people to be able to use these things 100 years from now, but we also want people to be able to use them now. So our collections run the gamut from cuneiform tablets, 2000 BC, up to things printed last week, material from around the world, obviously a lot of material from Rhode Island, but also a lot of material like the thing we're going to talk about today, which is not at all connected.
Jordan is also the curator of the Updike Collection. Can you tell us about the artifact that you have here today?
So this is an item that I actually purchased during lockdown. The Updike Collection, one of the real cores, it's a collection about the history of printing generally, but the real strength of it is typographic specimen books. So these are books that a type foundry or a printer would produce to kind of highlight the types and cuts, illustrations that are available to people who wanted to either buy those to print themselves or to show potential people things that they could print for them. This one is a specimen from probably sometime in the 1930s from a shop called the Bach and Gar Type Foundry. It is a San Francisco-based company. I think they were founded sort of early 20th century, 1905, 1906, something like that. And like most of the other specimens we have, this one highlights, like I say, typefaces, printing abilities, illustrations that people could use, businesses in San Francisco or elsewhere around the country. And one of the reasons I was excited to buy it back in 2020 is that the existing collection, which dates back, we started collecting things around 1910 in this area, sort of in a focused way. Really one of the most fantastic collections of this kind of book, predominantly Anglo-American, continental European. So that's always been its strength. But other places in the world, we haven't had as much coverage of or representation of. So I was excited to see this. I was also excited because I saw this originally from a bookseller who was offering it for a couple $1,000s. And I don't know if it was just because we were all locked in our houses, but I said, I'm going to just check eBay, which I don't usually do. It turned out that somebody on there had a copy that they were selling for $25. So I said, I'm going to buy the $25 copy instead of the $3,000 copy.
Can you tell us about some of the imagery that you would see in the book?
This one, you can see some of these are intended probably for Chinese restaurants. They feature food and people sort of displaying food, but some of them are really general. So we have some sort of Art Nouveau-esque images of women. There's machinery, an airplane, and you can kind of imagine the businesses that they had in mind who would have been using those sort of images. Nice little rooster. I don't know if it's Rhode Island Red, probably not. Some dancers, kind of a wide range, but you can kind of start to imagine the sorts of places that you'd see these, maybe on a menu or poster or all the places that people might have used those.
How can somebody listening get access to special collections, connect with you at special collections?
First of all, I'd love anybody who's hearing this to stop in. You don't have to be sort of air quotes, serious researcher. We're happy to have people who just have, a little break in their day and they just want to kind of see something interesting. So the easiest way to get in touch is through the library's website. We have a page on visiting special collections, and there is a link there to basically set up an appointment with us. We're almost always open Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Tuesday and Wednesday is 10 to noon and 1 to 5, and Thursday is 1 to 5. So those are kind of our standard hours, but if you just send us a quick email that says, hi, I'd love to come in and see the specimen book, we'll get back to you and set that up.
We are fortunate to have such a home for free minds here in the city of Providence. Let's all of us use the Providence Public Library more and more.
My name's Reina. I am a reference librarian. I just finished reading A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, which has been super popular. And actually, after I finished reading that, I was like, I need to make a romantasy book club. A Court of Thorns and Roses is, I think there's been a lot of hype around it. It's been on the New York Times bestseller list for several, I think over 6 months. It might have even been on there for about a year. It's about a girl named Feyre who gets, some would say, rescued from her family after a few events happen. She goes off to live with this guy named Tamlin, who is high fae and in charge of his own court. And it's a very sweet romance that kind of wraps up very nicely. I've just started reading the second book in the series, and I feel like if you just read the first book, it's fun, it's cute, it's easy to read. But the second book kind of turns that book on its head. I've been really enjoying this series, which is why I started the book club, because I was I need to talk to people about this because it's very sweet. It's a little spicy. The second book is very spicy, so if that's something that you're into. I've talked to a few people about the book, and some people found some connections to Beauty and the Beast Disney movie. So if you're into that kind of movie, I'd highly recommend it. By the time you're hearing this podcast, I'll probably be on my second book for the book club, which is Fourth Wing. Quick plug for that. It's by Rebecca Yarros. Again, it's a very popular book, especially on TikTok. If you're into dragons, that's the best part of the book to me. I think Violet, the main character, and that is a little bit annoying, but I will say that book is fast-paced action. It starts off, she has to do this walk very high up and can fall to her death, and there's a guy right behind her that's also wants her dead. The action in the book is really good. The romance in the book is kind of not my favorite. But it's also YA, and I'm fully an adult, so I'm not the target audience. But I really liked it. I think I gave it 4.5 stars, and I gave A Court of Thorns and Roses 4 stars. For all of my book clubs, but in particular the romantasy one, we're going to be meeting the last Saturday of every month in the Mural Room. And then for dates, April 27th, we're going to be discussing Fourth Wing. If you like regular science fiction books, so Nyx the Dragons, we'll be discussing Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir on April 29th.
Being joined in the studio now, Dan Wood from DWRI Letterpress, Amos Paul Kennedy Jr., whose exhibition Words from the Library on view now at PPL. How are you guys doing?
I'm in a library. How can you not be good?
Absolutely, yeah.
It is such a pleasure to have the both of you here in this really, really, really intimate sound booth. And I am just through the roof, so excited to be in space with you, Amos. Dan, we've been in a lot of space very recently. Again, man, myth, legend. I'm so happy to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about the project that's going on at the library right now, the exhibition Words from the Library? How did it come to be? What do we have in the stacks right now and through the ground, first and third floors?
Well, the project is an ongoing project on my part. I like to partner with public libraries to exhibit my work and also to harvest words of wisdom from the public. And the public library is the last common place in the United States. It is the only place in the United States that you do not have to have membership to enter. Or is there a fee that you have to pay? Yes, we pay it in the taxes, but that is the way everything is supposed to operate. So I like to promote the public library. And as I tell people, more people will see my work in the public library than in a gallery, because people come to the public library every day, all times of day, and they should be exposed to things of beauty, which sometimes you could say my work is a thing of beauty. But I think the beauty is that my work reflects the joy that I experience making it. And then the viewer can sense that when they look at it.
Dan, how did you become connected with the project?
Like Amos's love for public library, he also has a deep love for community, social justice, and coffee, right?
Yes.
So I was first exposed to his work there was a series called, Coffee is So Fine? Was that the?
It was a whole series about coffee.
Yeah, I remember coming across this print somewhere, and for my students, I teach letterpress printing one class, and I always put that on the handout because, look at this, you can feel this love and this joy. So in this particular case, and for the podcast listeners out there, I did warn them beforehand that it's really difficult to answer the question directly, but here it goes. But in this particular case, there's a printmaking conference for an organization called SGCI, Southern Graphic Council International, and Amos Paul Kennedy Jr. is the Lifetime Achievement Awardee. And as soon as we had reached out to people in Providence who were helping to work with this national organization, his first response was okay, if I'm having an exhibition, I want it to be in the public library. And so then in short conversations, he's like, this is what I'm thinking about doing. We put out the call. We started working with the different community libraries, the Downtown Public Library, in this beautiful collaboration to get input from the public that Amos then would work with to make his prints.
Congratulations again, Amos, on the Lifetime Achievement Award. It's such an honor.
Just means I'm old.
Speaking of old, I was doing a little bit of research into some of your prints and your history with printmaking, and I found a piece of information that you did not become a printer until you were almost 40 years old.
That is correct. Absolutely.
In Williamsburg, Virginia, you saw a letterpress reenactment? Is that?
Yes, okay. I did.
Can you tell us a little bit about that process, the shift between you in your late 30s coming to this realization that printmaking is for you and letterpress is for you, and then how that sort of shifted over time to where we are now?
I've always been interested in books. I guess I've always been interested in lettering. And in my 20s, I took up calligraphy. But calligraphy is very time-consuming. And when I would get to the end of the piece, I would misspell a word. So then I had to start all over again. So I never really pursued it heavily. It was more a hobby. And then when I went to Williamsburg, I saw the letterpress printing, and they explained how it operated. I said, so that means if I misspell a word, I just have to go in and correct that word, not the whole text, and then I can print it again. Wow, that's a lot of time saving. And I was living in Chicago at the time, and there was an organization called Artists Bookworks, which was a community print shop. And I went there and I took a course because at the time they had courses in the evening for adult enrichment, I guess. And that was it. I just fell off a cliff, and I've been falling ever since. And I acquired printing presses, and I acquired type, and then I went back to the university and to get an advanced degree, and I tried teaching, but it didn't work out. And then I moved to the South, and I was just with no money or anything. I just said, okay, I'll open a print shop. And I started printing for the community and just making posters. And I've been able to live off of that ever since. And I realized that the voice of the common person is not amplified as much as it should be. So I started printing words of wisdom that I heard of people gave to me, and then people bought them. So I was able to support myself. And I realized that this is what we call art is supposed to be. People are supposed to make things for their immediate community, for the community to use, not for some museum to buy and place and say, look what we have. We make things to celebrate the community in which we live. And so the way I serve community is through printing.
Amos, I saw a print that said social justice is not a sales pitch or a marketing tool. It's similar to your style, but I don't think it was your print, but it really reminded me of your work.
Yes, that is a work by Oscar at Tenderheart Press. And Oscar has come to my shop and worked, and then they went off and developed their own shop in the Atlanta area. And they come back on a regular basis so I can steal ideas from them. And I probably said that when they were yeah, no, you can say all this. I probably said that talking to myself while they were there. And then they said, great idea. No, I saw that quote and I was like, the most brilliant thing I've ever seen. That sums it all up, because corporate America will take a social issue and turn it into a sales point, because all they want to do is make $1. And then those people who actually believe in that issue, who create things that they want to be able to support the lifestyle that they have, cannot sell it. And because the corporations have usurped the social message.
And Dan, can you just tell a little bit about some of the things that you do? So it's a little bit of a different style than Amos. You create things that are handed out to people. They can come in an envelope or foldable form. How do you see your work being something that sort of disseminates through communities?
First of all, Amos gives away way more prints than I do.
Yeah.
That's because I'm independently poor.
Right. Congratulations. So you run a commercial print shop and do work in lots of different ways. So sometimes it's like, there's the print that is geared towards more of like a fine art world. A lot of times it's prints you just want to, like, there's a meeting at Providence City Hall for Community Safety Act or something like that. And so someone calls like, hey, there's this thing. So then we put on Instagram, hey, if anyone wants posters, and then like, oh, I have to make a poster. And then you're forced to solve creative problems because you only have this size type. You've only got this kind of paper. And so for me, my work basically is going from the panic of having decided to do something and getting out the door. But then you're kind of happy that you were forced to make those creative decisions. So I would say there's things like that. But also, I was doing a project every single day. Now it's a couple times a month called the Linotype Daily. And that involves a little bit different than Amos's work with the wood type, the machine that as you type, it's casting whatever it is you're typing into metal. And then instantly you can take that new type slug, put it on a press and be printing. And it's how all newspapers, all magazines, books were typeset for most of the last century, like up through the 1970s. That was something to sort of go back to the same technology, because printing is something you see every day. It's part of our history. So like if you're printing in a particular style from the 1950s, you're picking up the nuances of how that thing was used. Was it used in the civil rights movement? Was it used to promote segregation? Right? It's kind of like these things are all part of it. Viewer kind of feels, but they don't feel. But what's really interesting about it is Amos is making his prints with machines, handmade. I'm making my prints with machines and handmade. But then you give it to people, but it's hard to give all of them away because you don't see that many people. But then you put it on the unnamed social media platform here, but then other people see it and it's really bizarre because you could have like a meme or something else that says, hey, maybe killing innocent people in Gaza is a bad idea, right? People are going to react to it. But then if it's something that's handmade in that digital realm, people pay more attention to it. In someone's words and actions, you can still feel the humanity, but in the print, you can really feel the humanity. That's one nuance of all of this, and I just don't quite understand, but I think is really interesting. Amos's entire point for being a printer really is just to communicate things, right? And
yes.
So the more you can do that, the better.
We're here in a public library. Obviously, Amos, your exhibition is very closely tied to public libraries. Do either of you, Dan, Amos, have a special memory of a time inside the public library?
But just say a library. I fell in love with a librarian when I was 7 years old. I had my heart broken a couple of days later when I saw it with another man.
You were 7. How old was the librarian?
19.
Different.
But all of my life, I have always been in a library. In elementary school, I would go in the morning and help the librarians because they had these racks they had these shafts that you would put the newspaper on. And it was, it was like, you had 4 or 5 little rails coming out and you would put the different section of the newspaper. And that was one of the tasks I would do, put the books back, and then I would just go to the library. The library has always been a sanctuary for me.
I just want people to know that you can forget like Bumble and Tinder and all that stuff because my story also has a little bit of romance. Because I think the first person I ever kissed was in the back stairs of the Boston Public Library off of Boylston Street. That would have been like...
This podcast is actually called Library Love Stories.
We should be releasing this next February.
I think it was 7th grade. I can't remember. Yeah. Anyways, but there's too many stories. Like, like you're walking out the library and you're going by the new bookshelf and you see some book. For me, it was The Intuitionist. Did you ever read The Intuitionist?
I did not.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Okay.
Right. But
Dan has the next book recommendation.
But there's so many things. You run into people just hanging the show, the number of people you run into, like when we saw Bob Dilworth, right? And they're just like, it's this community that, and the trouble is now because I feel like there's so many people who can, should, may need, but could be using the library. So many people are just not even aware that this free open space exists. Like, it's kind of amazing. Yeah. Instead of taking the bus, you take the Uber. Yeah. Instead of going to the library, you go to Amazon for the thing you're going to return in 6 weeks or whatever.
Full disclosure, I did spend a year in library school.
Really?
Do you have your MLIS degree?
No, I don't.
You were in there for a year.
I was attempting to get one at Case Western Reserve.
That is fun fact.
Stalking that 19-year-old. I mean, the dedication is amazing.
Well, this has been great. Thanks so much for joining us.
Okay.
Dan, if people want to learn more about you and DWRI Letterpress, where can they find you?
They can go to Google and they could type up DWRI Letterpress. Or my favorite local letterpress printer. It's also good. Just, you never know. I'm not saying I'll come out. I'll hope. Because I'll probably be like number 3 or number 7.
Yeah.
Right?
Exact Google search.
Hopefully number 1. What about you, Amos? If somebody wants to learn more about your work, where can they find you?
Well, that's interesting. I am on the internet. So if you do a search on me, you find things. I do not have a website that's functioning. But I am on Instagram under Kennedy Prints. And I post there occasionally.
Thank you both for being with us. Words from the Library will be on view till May 10th, and we hope to see you at the library. If you have any questions about the exhibit, please reach out.
Reminder is that at the end of the exhibition, a portion of the show will be given to the public. First come, first serve.
So if you are interested in one of Amos's prints after May 10th, please visit Providence Public Library and the community libraries to receive one of his beautiful prints.
While the supply lasts.
Thank you for listening to the first episode of This, That, and Another.
And a special thank you to Amos Paul Kennedy Jr., Dan Wood, Reina, Jordan Goffin. We appreciate you talking with us today. In our next episode, we look forward to speaking with Becky Davis and Kai Soares-Cobb, whose exhibition From Hold to Horizon is currently on view in the main gallery on the 3rd floor and will be on view until June 25th.
You can find all the things that are happening at Providence Public Library at provlib.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Providence Public Library. Connect with us on Instagram at Providence Public Library. Love to hear from you. And we look forward to the next episode of
This, That, and Another.